Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Lunchtime Learning series. I am delighted to welcome you to the series, which has been designed to fit around busy schedules every other Thursday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. This series is free to members of the Institute of Export, so if you haven't already signed up to the future lunchtime learnings or watched our previous sessions and wish to, please get in touch with us and we'll be delighted to help. Everyone in attendance today will receive a copy of the slides following the webinar, and a recording will be hosted exclusively in our members area on the website. There are polls in today's session and a survey upon exit where you can provide your feedback. Our members also have exclusive access to our previous series, Trading with the EU and Practical Trade, which were designed to give you more information on successfully trading following the introduction of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement between UK and the EU. This session is Origin Supplier Declarations, which is being delivered by Jimena Florian, who is a Trade and Customs Specialist. And Jimena is MBA qualified business executive with 20 years of significant experience in international trade, business development, logistics, project management, change management, and business startup. And Jimena is a full member of the Institute of Export and International Trade. And now I'll hand over to Jimena for today's presentation.
Thank you very much, Sidonia. I'm delighted to be your host today. And for today, we are going to go through the easement that we have for origin suppliers declarations. So hopefully you will have a good insight on what you need to be doing, what things you need to be aware to be compliant with these declarations. So let's have a start. So first of all, let's have an introduction on what is this about. In 2021, the UK left the European Community and the Trade and Cooperation Trade Agreement was finally agreed. So this trade agreement established all the requirements for claiming preferential origin on goods that were aiming or are aiming to claim a preferential tariff that is payable under the Global Tariff or the EU TARIC. Therefore, the trade agreement includes rules of origin for the claiming of a preferential tariff. UK exporters then have been given a year's period grace on certifying the origin of the components of a finished good that is claiming a preference. This period is going to end this year, the 31st of December 2021. So that's why we are making this webinar, to give you the insights of what needs to be in place by the time we all reach the 31st of December 2021. Next, please. So first of all, we have reached our first poll, so I'm going to hand over to you, to Sidonia.
Thank you, Jimena. And we have reached our first poll, and is which one of these best describes your business? So what are we looking to get out of today's results, Jimena?
Well, I would like to see what kind of businesses are with us today, and to see the sample of companies that are under these measures. So that will be interesting to see if we have more manufacturers or exporters or importers. So I think it's going to be a mix of each one today.
Amazing, thank you. And we'll give it a few more minutes for our members to vote. It's fantastic to have so many members here. And we are closing the poll and launch the results. And I'll hand over to Jimena to comment on the context of the results.
Well, as I had a guess, that definitely manufacturers and importers are the key parties, and it's interesting to see here that we have as well a good sample of representatives of these two stakeholders, manufacturers and importers. So it's great to see that people are interested to get ahead and get every compliance for the supplier declarations. Great. Excellent. So let's continue for today. This is our agenda. So first of all, we are going to have a look on what is the current supplier declaration compliance requirements, what we have at the moment. Later on, we are going to see the implications of the UK EU trade agreement in relation to suppliers declarations. After that, we are going to have a look on what controls. Okay. So let's go and have a look at what is a supplier declaration. So first of all, a supplier declaration is a supporting evidence document of a statement on origin that have been done about the origin of some particular goods. Yeah. So usually suppliers provide these declarations to exporters or importers that are claiming preferential origin over goods in front of customs. Yeah. So this document states the origin of the goods and also raw materials that are part of the finished good. Yeah. So a supplier declaration then define if the products or the materials or the elements, the components can claim preferential origin. Yeah. This is defined by the trade agreement that has been signed between the parties, in this case, the UK and European Community. And this supports the origin statement that is made in invoices. Next, please. So if we want to have a look step by step, let's first of all remember that this is highly influenced by the Incoterm. So depending on the Incoterm that has been agreed, the importer of record is the party that has to have in place all these supplier declarations and have them in compliance. So in our draw, we have, for example, this importer, and this importer is the customer of a foreign supplier. And let's say this customer in the UK, imagine, wants to claim preference in front of customs. Yeah, so if this importer wants to claim that preference, he will have to demonstrate the origin of the goods and has to demonstrate that the goods are complying with the rules of origin. Therefore, this importer has to go back to his supplier, in this case, the exporter, and he will have to ask all the documentation and proofs that show to customs that indeed the goods are complying with the rules of origin under the particular free trade agreement. Yeah? So in this way, this importer is able to provide this data to customs, and customs can assess if they grant or not the preferential duty. Next. So now, a key thing to bear in mind in terms of the timeline we have at the moment for supplier declarations. So from the 1st of January 2021, it was the start of the easements that was agreed between the European Community and the United Kingdom. So these two custom territories agreed that they were going to give all traders a time to learn all the compliance about suppliers' declarations and rules of origin. Therefore, between the 1st of January 2021 until the 31st of December 2021, an easement on holding all these proofs and documentations was agreed. So in this period, what is possible for traders is that they can present a statement on origin without the need to present at the same time all the supports that prove that the goods indeed comply with rules of origin. However, this easement is until the 31st of December. By the 31st of December, all these supporting documents, what we call the supplier's declaration, have to be in place and have to be alongside the statements on origin. And then from the 31st of December 2021 and from starting from the 1st of January 2022, this easement is gonna end, and from then on, from the 1st of January 2022, it will be mandatory to present the two things at the same time. So you have to present your statement on origin accompanied by the supplier's declaration, which is the proof of that statement of origin. Next, please. So until the 31st of December 2021, portals that are issuing statements of origin for customers claiming preference on import duty, example 0%. At the moment, you don't need to present at the same time the statement and the supplier declaration to issue the statement. Nevertheless, is the importer of record responsibility to ensure that, one, the goods are meeting the rules of origin, and second, you have till the 31st of December to obtain the supplier declaration once you have submitted the statement of origin. Next. So from the 1st of January 2022, you must hold a supplier's declaration when needed if you are going to claim preference. If you do not have a supplier's declaration, then there is an obligation to let the customer know that you cannot supply it or you don't have it. So your customer is aware that that claim that was made using only the statement on origin is subject to customs challenge. And if your supplier cannot provide the proof of the statement, then the claim you did is not going to be sustainable. Next, please. So let's have another poll. Sidonia, please.
Thank you. We have reached our second poll. Are you ready for origin statements and if need to have a supplier's declaration? And I'm just going to launch the poll so that our members can vote. Okay, so the poll is open now. And again, what we're looking to get out of today's results, Jimena?
Well, it will be my guess that most of the attenders today are in progress. I think businesses have been having lately news about this end of the easement in December, so hopefully many traders are working on being compliant, so they must be in progress. It will be my guess.
Perfect, thank you, Jimena. And we'll give it a few more moments for our members to vote. And we're closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, the poll is now closed and I'm sharing the results. And I'll hand over to Jimena to comment on the context of the results.
Yeah, so as expected, most of the sample is in progress, which is great. That means our traders are looking forward to be compliant. And it's great to see that we have 20% of traders that are already aware and they are ready. Fantastic. And for those that still not ready, remember that here in the Institute of Export, we are doing all of these webinars, and with all of the other services we have, we can support you on that compliance. So let's continue to implications of the EU-UK Trade Cooperation Agreement in relation to suppliers' declarations. So what are the implications? The implications with the trade commercial agreement and a supplier declaration is we need to bear in mind that this easement is part of the UK trade agreement. So it's affected by the rules of origin that were agreed under the trade commercial agreement between Europe and the United Kingdom. So it applies to businesses that wants to import goods from Europe, zero rated, or businesses that wants to export towards Europe as well, allowing their customers to claim an EU zero tariff. Yeah. So a supplier declaration is one of the documents, and I think a key document that needs to be submitted to prove the origin and the status of those goods, so customs agencies can assess if the goods are meeting this rule, therefore the preferential duty can be granted. Next, please. In terms of bilateral accumulation, what is the relation then with a supplier's declaration? So remember that when we are assessing rules of origin, practically custom authorities wants to assess the level of cumulation, either wholly obtained goods, or if they are not wholly obtained, the level of cumulation they have gathered, and if that level of cumulation on origin is sufficient to claim a preferential duty. Yeah. So in our slide, we have, for example, that the main origin rules that are assessed between the UK and the European Community under the TCA in relation to cumulation are change of commodity code to classify your goods, or value add or percentage rule, or the specific processes. These specific rules allowed us to assess the level of cumulation. So whenever we have an assessment of cumulation, we need the proof of that claim on cumulation. So where a product has obtained its originating status through cumulation production that has been carried out in Europe, for example, on non-originating materials, yeah, the exporter of those goods must get a declaration from the supplier of those non-originating materials, because customs agencies need to assess if those non-originating materials have gathered sufficient cumulation to claim the preferential duty. Next, please. So let's have a visual on this process. So first of all, the supplier provides a proof of non-originating material to the manufacturer or the exporter. Then the manufacturer or the exporter process these goods to obtain a finished good. And once the finished good is obtained, the manufacturer can assess, okay, according to the particular rule of origin, let's see if this finished good has gathered sufficient cumulation to claim origin. Once that assessment is done, the origin on the statement is made as well from the manufacturer towards the final importer of record. And in that way, the origin on statement is provided alongside the supplier declaration over those non-originating goods. So you see that reflected in the graphic. The supplier provide all these proof towards the manufacturer, proof over the non-originating materials. Next. The manufacturer received this documentation on non-originating materials from the supplier, transform those goods to a finished good, and then he assess and provide to the end customer, in this case the importer, the statement on origin, and all the supplier declarations proving the origin. Next, please. So once we have understood what is a supplier declaration, implications with the trade agreement, let's go and have a look at what controls need to be in place from now on. So at the moment, from the 1st of January this year till the 31st of December of this year, importer of records need to identify all those declarations that they've been doing throughout the year where they have been claiming preference. Yeah. Once they have gathered that, they need to identify in all of those declarations where they have claimed preference, identify in which one they still don't have the supplier's declaration. Yeah. And they need to ask their suppliers for provide that supplier's declaration so they are in compliance. Yeah. And once they receive from their suppliers that support and the proof of origin, they need to check that the supplier declaration, the format that they have provided is in line with the format that has been required for a supplier's declaration. So traders can find this information in the Annex 6 of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement between the UK and the United Kingdom, where it explains how this format should be. Next. And from the 1st of January ahead onwards, 1st of January 22 onwards, the importers of record, first of all, they need to understand the specific rule of origin that is assigned to a particular commodity code under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement between the United Kingdom and Europe, and discuss and arrange with their foreign sellers all the conditions and formalities to submit both documents, the statement on origin, and all the proofs for that statement on origin, which is the supplier declaration. Yeah. Also, if you are an importer of record, you need to check that all this documentation is is in compliance and it obeys to the specific rule of origin under the treaty. Next, please. Let's go and have a look then. So in relation to these formalities, some requirements for UK and EU suppliers. And here we have our third poll. I leave you with Sidonia then.
Thank you, Jimena. We have reached our third poll today, and it's: have you collected all the suppliers' declarations for your operations? I'm going to launch the poll so that then the members can vote. Right, and what are we looking to get out of today's results, Jimena, of our third poll?
Well, I think from feedback we've been receiving, well, this is a still in progress activity. I will think many people still are gathering and collecting declarations and checking that they are in compliance. So it will be my guess that most of the attendees may be still in progress.
I see, no problem. And we'll give it 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and we're closing the polls and launch the results. And handing over to Jimena to comment on the context of the results.
Yeah, it's in line with the expectation. Most of the people are still in progress working on it, but it's interesting to see that 40% not yet. So I emphasize, if you feel that you need a bit more help with this process or more understanding and guidance, please reach us, because we are here to help and to guide you through this compliance process for suppliers' declarations. Do reach us. Great. So let's focus now then on the requirements for UK and EU suppliers. So we have two cases. If you are a supplier of non-originating materials, or if you are a manufacturer, therefore exporter. Yeah. So if you are a supplier of non-originating materials, and these non-originating materials are going to be involved in the process of obtaining a finished good, you must provide to your customer, in this case the manufacturer, an origin declaration of these non-originating elements that your customer is going to use to transform and obtain a finished good. Now, if you are the manufacturer and subsequently you're going to export that finished good, and you are going to use non-originating materials from other places, you need to ask these suppliers of these non-originating materials to provide you with that origin declaration, and you need to hold this documentation for customs audits, and also if your customer, the importer of record, requires it in case a claim on preference is being challenged. Next, please. So in relation of record keeping, this is important. If you are an importer that is making claims on preferential duties under the treaty, you must keep the statement of origin that was made out by the exporter for 4 years. Yeah, so in your documentation, you need to keep all these statements made in the invoice for 4 years. And if you are an exporter who has made a statement on origin in an invoice, you must keep a copy of the statement of origin and all other records showing that the product satisfies the requirements to get origin status. So for example, suppliers declarations and invoices, and those two documents and proofs must be kept as well for 4 years. Yeah. In both cases, these records, if they were made electronically, they can be stored electronically. Next, please. Now we have the case of sometimes there are multiple shipments. If you are a trader under multiple shipments, Sidonia, please. This implies that you are providing similar goods, identical goods to a customer under a contract of 12 months. Yeah. So in that case, when you are a supplier and you are under an order, big order of same identical goods over a period of 12 months maximum, you could use a long-term supplier declaration. Sidonia? So this is handy because you don't have to do one single supplier declaration for every time you send the goods to your customer. If you are under a contract of similar goods under the similar circumstances, same origin, same dispatch, same customer, then you can provide a long-term declaration to cover all these dispatches, and in that way your customer only have to record this long-term declaration. Next, please. Now, what a long-term declaration must state? So first of all, the date in which this declaration was issued, so the day it became formal, the start date of the supply. Yeah, this is different from the date of issue. The date of issue is when the document was made, and the start date is the starting date of your supply. Yeah, this start date cannot be no more than before the date of issue. So let's assume this is our date of issue. It cannot be more than 12 months before. And also, it cannot be more than 6 months after the date of issue. Yeah. So going back, maximum 12, going further, maximum 6. Now, it has to have as well the end date of the supply. Yeah. And this end date of the supply cannot be more than 24 months after the starting date of the supply. Yeah, so whatever is the starting date of the supply is up to 24 months as the end date of the supply. Let's have a look on what documentation we need to be aware from now on as well. So what are these supports that suppliers need to be collecting? So commercial documents that are identifying the nature of the goods. Yeah, so we need to identify those goods clearly. For example, we need a commercial invoice, or we can also use a delivery note, or we can use an ad hoc document that includes a preprint form, which refer or is annexed to a commercial invoice or another commercial document, but where we are describing clearly goods. Yeah. Also, it's very, very important that any of these documents that you may use to use as a supplier declaration, is mandatory that they describe precisely and clearly these goods. So let's go and have a look what kind of description is required. Next, please. So these supporting documents may include this kind of data. The process that has been carried out over the originating good or over the non-originating materials to obtain the finished good. The purchase of the cost, the value, and the payment for the good if the manufacturer was buying, for example, non-originating materials. He needs to have documentation that proves that purchase, and it has to relate all these elements: the cost, the value, the payment of the good. The originating status of the good, either non-originating material or originating element. So keep the originating status of that good that was purchased, the cost of that good, the value of that good, and payment for all materials. This is proof for customs to assess the specific rule of origin. Next, please. So any declaration that is produced electronically do not need to be signed with wet signature, as long as the person that is responsible, the official that is responsible in the supply, is clearly identified. So name, surname, and role in the company. All other supplier declarations that are not electronically and must have a physical signature, a wet signature, put on the document. Yeah. Long-term declarations should be made on company header note paper. Next, please. So let's summarize then business management processes that we need parties that are involved in the process of claiming preference and need to put in place. And our last poll, so I'll leave you with Sidonia.
Thank you, Jimena. And our last poll is, are your documents records keeping compliant? And I'm just going to launch the fourth poll for our audience to vote. And again, handing over to Jimena to just to see what we're looking to get out of today's results.
Well, this is one that I personally wouldn't have a guess. I think that maybe unsure, maybe traders have been collecting documentation, but maybe they are not sure what the treaty requires as collecting all of these documents and how long they need to collect them. So I will say unsure.
Thank you. We'll give it a few more moments for our members to vote. And we are closing the poll and launching the results. And handing over to Jimena to comment on the context of the results.
It's great that we have the major sample indicating that indeed they have originating documents compliant and they have been keeping them compliant, so it's great. And for those that are still not there or aren't sure, just remember we are here to help, and we have great consultants that can guide you, and also material that can help you to be sure that you are compliant and you are meeting all the rules for this document. So in relation to the business management process that parties that are involved in this compliance process for documents, these are things we suggest need to be followed in the compliance process. So first of all, get acquaintance with the regulations that are covering suppliers declarations. So two aspects that I think any trader that is claiming preference is go to Annex 6 of the UK and EU trade agreement, and that's a chapter focus on suppliers declarations. So it will explain you everything about suppliers declarations and the type of declarations and the formalities for these declarations, and also the EU regulation 2020-2254 approved by Europe and also by the United Kingdom in relation to this easement period for suppliers declarations under the treaty. And it's key you get acquaintance with these two regulations. Second, remember, identify business transactions during the easement period that have been taking place where you have been claiming preference, and at the moment you may only have a statement on origin. Make sure to track which ones you only have at the moment a statement on origin. Make sure to contact your supplier, your exporter, to request to send you the supplier declaration to back up that statement. Yeah, so sometimes suppliers are not aware that they need to provide this, or they are not aware about the form they need to follow to provide all this, the supplier declaration and the proofs, the documentation attached to it. So that's where we can be handy and proactive by getting acquaintance with these regulations and also reaching the IOE in case you need further assistance. Discuss with your suppliers the formality on how these documents need to be presented. Collect these documents. Check that they are compliant with what the Annex 6 indications said, and submit then all this documentation to custom authorities or your custom representative, because it's your custom representative, the one that is going to act on behalf of you in front of customs. So in this way, this is submitted at the time of issuing a declaration. Last but not least, you need to record the origin statement and also the supplier declaration for 4 years. So make sure you have all these records together for 4 years. Next, please. And if you've been issuing declarations between the 1st of January 2021 till the 31st of December 2021, identify is key. This is what you need to be doing now. Identify those transactions where you claim preference, request and collect those suppliers declarations. Remember that the deadline is the 31st of December 2021. And please do keep these records for 4 years, just in case customs challenge a claim. So you will have all the documentation to prove that the claim is rightful because you are meeting the respective rules of origin. And from the 1st of January 2022 onwards, make sure or be aware, I will say that if your supplier haven't provided yet these supplier declarations over the non-originating materials or over the finished good, it will be understood for customs authorities that the claim on the preferential duty cannot be sustained, yeah? And your customer needs to be aware. So it's your obligation as the exporter or the supplier of the good to provide that if your customer is claiming preference over the goods, it's your responsibility to provide this supplier declaration with all the supports. And if you cannot do that, you need to let them know so they are aware that they may get challenged by customs. Next, please. So last but not least, this is a summary of the key steps that traders involved in the claim of preference under the TCA and the UK Trade Commercial Agreement needs to be in place. So next one, Sidonia. So first of all, understand the rule of origin that is involved in the claim is key. It's your responsibility as the importer of record to understand what is this rule about and understand with your supplier how is the way you are going to prove that this good indeed complies with the rule of origin. Second, request and coordinate with your supplier not only the origin statement, but also the supplier declaration that proves that that statement is rightful. Yeah. So this takes time to gather all of that data, to coordinate with suppliers. So don't leave it to the moment you are claiming preference. Make sure you have all of this before you are claiming preference. Ensure that the documentation received from your exporter is in line with the format required for a supplier declaration. So it's going to be is valid under the treaty. And last, hold this documentation, both the origin statement and the supplier declaration, for 4 years. So if you follow these steps from the 1st of December, 1st of January 2022, you're going to be compliant and you're not going to have surprises in relation to claim of preference and rules of origin. This is key, and hopefully we hope that this overview has been useful to understand when this easement is going to finish, what is going to be required from traders from the next year, and what sort of documentation you need to have in place and which parties you need to contact if you need this documentation. Next, please. So we have finished this session today. We would like to emphasize that we are here to support you in relation to this claim of preference, understanding of rules of origin and the relationship with the suppliers declarations. Do reach us if you need additional support. Remember that we have many services, technical helpline, one-day online training courses, these lunchtime webinars, and a business shield and consultancy. So all kind of services to make sure you keep up to date with all trade changes and challenges. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. I hope this has been useful and insightful, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, Sidonia, and I wish you a very good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimena, and thank you for attending today's session. We hope you found it very valuable. The recording of today's session and the link for the slides will be included in your follow-up emails. Thank you.